Hello and welcome to Just Onside. It's Friday. It's a beautiful Friday in Blackburn. It's been a gorgeous week here. How's the weather been in Abu Dhabi?
Wonderful, Ayub. Very nice. We've had 6 days off. This is day four, I guess. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're shooting this Friday night. So we went to Dubai for a couple of days just to break up the monotony of it all with the holidays and what have you. It's very hot at the moment, Ayub. Very hot and humid. Dubai was pretty hot as well. So daytime activities were at a premium or at a minimum, I should say. But it's been good to spend a bit of time de-stressing and just relaxing with the family, enjoying the Eid break. How about yourself?
Weather-wise, exactly the same. I mean, it felt like Dubai. It's been scorchingly hot. We've had a really good, nice heat wave. I think it ends probably on Sunday or Monday, but we've had a tremendous week. Obviously, it's been Eid as well. Fantastic. Nice to spend time with the family and some friends as well. So all good, all good. A very busy week at work as well. It's been truncated by sort of bank holiday and Eid, so it's made it very, very busy, but all good. All good. And the fact that Leeds are still in the Premier League for another season, obviously, I'm feeling sort of quite chipper mood, hence the top. So all good, all good. But I suppose it's the season finale, isn't it, in terms of sort of domestic football tomorrow? And what a finale! What a word! What a finale! It's going to be the Champions League, which is always a mouth-watering prospect. But there's a vested interest for you. It's your beloved Arsenal, who remind me, have you been in the Champions League in recent years, or is this the first one for many, many, many years?
It's the first final for the best part of 20, I want to say 22 years, or 20, 21, 20 years, because I'm thinking about the Stade de France final against Barcelona, but they've only been in the Champions League final or European Cup final once before, and it was that painful defeat to Barcelona. So this is their second trip to the big time, Ayub. So yeah, a lot riding on the game.
Yeah, I mean, as a neutral, I'm absolutely looking forward to it because it's sort of contrasting styles of football, which makes it really exciting. I think for those who love football to see how sort of how each team plays and how each team sort of navigates the opponent's sort of either attacking or defensive. In Arsenal's case, obviously, I suppose the they're a mean outfit to sort of break down. So I'm really intrigued to sort of find how PSG sort of tackle this and approach this game. But as an Arsenal fan, you must be still buzzing the fact that you won the league. That obviously I think helps Arsenal enormously going into this game. But as a fan, sort of what's your thoughts? How do you feel? And what do you think Arsenal need to do? Because this is probably the trickiest game they're going to face all season. I mean, they've obviously had some tough games, but in terms of club sides, there is no better than PSG. So what do you think it will take for Arsenal to overcome this Paris giant?
It's interesting how you build it up because obviously in the Premier League, Arsenal were in the end going up against Manchester City, and you were hopeful from your perspective for Pep Guardiola to leave on a high. Now we're playing a team that is the class of Europe, and it's a club and a team that you've got a bit of a soft spot for, given that you obviously spent quite a bit of time in Paris or just outside Paris in terms of work and what have you, and you've obviously been you've enjoyed the atmosphere there, that
Oh
stadium,
yes.
and what have you. It's an incredible football team, Ayub. And ultimately, for me, this is how it should be when you're trying to win the preeminent competition in Europe. It felt better the fact that Arsenal overcame Pep Guardiola in his final season at Manchester City to win the Premier League title. Not all successes are measured equally. Yes, they may all just count the same in terms of the numerics, but I think in terms of how we feel about them, I think they are not just in terms of made in the very same way. So to beat Guardiola in the league meant something a lot more. I'm sure it did for Mikel Arteta, his kind of protege and what have you. And the same now is the truth for PSG in terms of overcoming the class of Europe, and that is what they are right now. They boast the best front line in Europe, in my opinion. They boast probably the best player in the world in Kvaratskhelia. So for me, in terms of solving puzzles, This is how it should be. So, in terms of the overriding emotion, Ayub, I wouldn't say nerves have kicked in yet. I think that's perhaps for tomorrow. The game kicks off at 8 p.m. local time here, as opposed to some ungodly hour, which is normally the case when it comes to Champions League games over here. But I would say if you told me to summarize it from an Arsenal perspective, or at least what's been my overriding emotion over the last couple of days while spending a bit of time in Dubai, enjoying the sights and what have you, it is that opportunity knocks. Ayub. I don't see this as a free hit, far from it. Champions League final berths are not guaranteed. This is a huge opportunity for Arsenal Football Club. Winning the Premier League makes you a champion. Winning the Champions League for me is a different stratosphere altogether. When Mikel Arteta came to this football club, and I guess we've spoken about it throughout the years about this journey that Arsenal have been on, and I've never wavered. I've always felt he would take Arsenal back to the big time. You saw the directional steps of progress that he uh, brought us through year in, year out. And it wasn't linear. It wasn't that every year was some sort of step forward. Last year, I would argue that we took a big step back. I go back to 19th of May 2024, 2 years ago, when they lost on the final day of the season. I say lost, they won the game, but they fell short to Man City, took it to the final game, game week 38, home match to Everton 2-1. And he spoke about it, and I watched it recently. You speaking to the fans because it was the final game of the season at home, so you get the mic as a manager. And he spoke about, and I think I'll try and quote him verbatim. He spoke about to the fans to keep pushing the team, to keep inspiring the team, not to be satisfied because we want much more than that. And he ended the mic with some sort of mic drop by saying, "And we're going to get it." It was quite decisive in his statement. And here we are 2 years later, where he's got his rewards, are you in terms of delivering that Premier League? I mean, you've seen the emotion, you've seen the celebrations. It has, I think, it's taken a lot of, I would imagine, a lot of neutral fans a little back in terms of the spontaneity of the celebrations. I think the parade, I think it's organized for Sunday, I want to say.
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
going to be a huge parade. I think they've extended it additional distance. I think it's going to be a 9 kilometer
Mm.
parade or something along those lines. Not something that they've ventured into previously. So it'll be interesting to see. But you can imagine how many people are going to rock up for that parade. Perhaps a few more if they deliver the Champions League tomorrow night. It's a huge opportunity. I don't think Champions League finals are there. It could well be that Arsenal are a better team next season and don't make it to this stage because every season has its own story. A bit of bad luck, an injury at the most inopportune time. Champions League finals are there to be won. Doesn't really matter how you play. You've just got to win the game. I'll perhaps break down what I think are some of the key points that I think Arsenal have to get right tomorrow to have a chance against this incredible footballing team in PSG. But in terms of the overarching opportunity that Arsenal have, I mean, yeah, Champions League final. I always thought for the longest time Arteta would deliver a Premier League title because I saw the steps that they were taking. I saw the shoots of progress, the profile of players, the mentality slowly but surely being kind of infused into that squad, into that club. He gave a wonderful interview, I thought, to Gary Neville. And Wright sat down with the overlap. It's going over my shoulder, but he spoke about the culture when he first came into the club. It was really poor in terms of how people felt about working for the organization and institution and what have you. But the Champions League felt too far away. That felt as though some sort of distant pipe dream, kind of only left for the Liverpools, the Man Cities, the Real Madrids, the Barcelonas, the Bayern Munichs. This didn't feel as though a mountain that Arsenal could get to. Yes, Premier League, that's your bread and butter, but the Champions League is just another level of, let's say, superstardom and stratosphere in which you have to compete. And I never once felt, and that's been corroborated by Arsenal's results. They've only made it recently back into the Champions League consistently under Arteta, obviously quarterfinals, semi-finals, and now finals once they've made it back. So yeah, it's a huge, huge opportunity over 90, 95 minutes, maybe 120 minutes, maybe penalties, who knows, to etch your name in history. So yeah, crazy, wonderful opportunity. It feels quite an honor in some ways to be part of this game. the one that I've watched for years and years being contested by, again, Liverpool, even Spurs have contested it recently. Man City, Inter Milan, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, all the rest of it, this amazing PSG team. And now Arsenal get to have that opportunity to become champions of Europe. Yeah, huge opportunity. Really excited to see what Arsenal put forth tomorrow night.
Just on the game itself, I mean, I talked about in the intro about two contrasting styles, and they are. I mean, these. I think for most neutrals, perhaps they'll be back in PSG because they play a brand of football which I suppose is more pleasing to the eye. So what's your thoughts? I mean, do you think Arsenal just sort of play exactly the way that they normally do? Sort of very conservative approach to the game where they sort of minimise the opposition to chances, and then obviously they've got sort of match winners. I mean, Saka obviously is one of the key sort of players, and is that going to be the way that sort of you'll overcome PSG, or is there going to have to be a different tactic and strategy used by Arteta?
Yeah, the phrase that springs to mind when I think about what PSG offer, and this is what the very best teams do, Ayub, is that they make you pick their poison, right? Pick your poison. They're not going to give you a steady diet of one aspect. It's what makes them the best team in Europe. If you defend deep, then ultimately over the course, you need to be able to get out onto the opposition half. But they'll over the course of time, they'll find a way to break it down because they've got elite footballers. If you turn it into a transitional, chaotic team, PSG have runners for fun. And they'll be able to meet that fire with fire as well. I've thought for the longest time about what kind of game we could expect tomorrow, you. I have this feeling, and it makes me very nervous to some extent, is that we'll get a similar game to the Etihad. Now, the Etihad game, if you remember, you was quite an adventurous game from Arsenal, actually. They went really, I want to say man for man, but there were many times they were caught 4-on-4. If it wasn't for better passes, I remember Haaland to Semenyo, a few others where Haaland missed a chance. They probably could have conceded a few more times, and it became quite the chaotic game. I worry that it could descend into that type of game because PSG drag you into that type of situation in terms of man for man. I think, Ayub, just very quickly, I think there's three elements that Arsenal will have to answer to see how they can manage to get one over on PSG tomorrow. Firstly, the right back situation. I think they've run out of time to get Timber fit. He's travelled, but if you're out of the team or you're for 2.5 months, you can't be expected just to start the Champions League final. I don't think it'd be fair on him. I think even if you think he can give us 60 minutes, I just don't think you can start him in those circumstances. I think they'll go with Mosquera at right back and somewhat slide Rice over to that side a little bit, which sacrifices a little bit of what Rice is good at, which is maybe perhaps pinching the ball in the final attacking third. So I think that is a very difficult quandary. He's got a decision to make at left back. He's got a decision to make in the centre midfield. Does he go with Zubimendi or Miles Lewis-Skelly? He's got an issue at forward area, Havertz or Gyökeres. I say issue, good problems to have. And maybe even on the left, does he go Trossard or does he sneak in Eze? Because I have a feeling Odegaard's going to start just for the simple case that he's a better presser than Eze. So I think the right back situation, I think it is going to be Mosquera. Timber's the better player. If Timber had played a few more games, I think Arsenal would feel like their chances increased by at least 5% just by having their first choice back five, let's say back five, back six. I think the second issue, and you've seen this firsthand, Dembele is so adept at dropping deeper, and forcing centre backs into areas where they don't want to be. Will Arsenal force one of the centre backs, most likely Saliba, to follow him? And I've seen Saliba do that against Harry Kane, where he follows him everywhere. The difference between Harry Kane and Ayub is one, he's not blessed with pace like Dembele is, and secondly, Kane drops more deeper centrally, bringing his wingers into play, whereas Dembele drifts left, drifts right. He takes you into pockets that I don't think centre backs want to be on, and I think that's going to be the biggest issue if that happens. If Arsenal go man to man, and that's the last thing I will drop on. PSG force you very much. They play a very expansive game. Fullbacks bombing on. They've probably got the best fullback duo in Hakimi and Mendes. So they do force you into this kind of man-to-man game a little bit. Now, Arsenal will probably want to have some semblance of control in terms of defensive for two banks of four for sure. But if they do end up going for man, does that perhaps encourage maybe someone like Miles Lewis Skelly? Gives you more legs, but he also gives you somebody who can actually win a one-on-one duel in terms of you've seen how he plays a low center of gravity, tries to beat his man, kind of wriggling through, and that could set up a lot of Arsenal counterattacks, especially the infusion of maybe kind of youth into the middle of the park. So I just think I question again what type of game we're going to get. I think maybe early on Arsenal will be trying to just get through that first 5-10 minutes without conceding. Uh, and I think PSG may well adopt a very similar view. I mean, it's a final. It's a one-off game. It's a different formula than last year. Arsenal played them three times, twice in the Champions League knockout semi-finals, once in the group stages of the Champions League times. And those three games are Arsenal had a better XG in all three games than PSG. PSG only were, let's say, outperformed on XG six times last season. Three were against Arsenal. So I don't think last season necessarily counts for much. It's a different team, it's a different profile. I could argue PSG are a much more confident side as well. Could make the argument for Arsenal as well.
Mm.
But I just think Arsenal will not necessarily feel inferior to PSG, even though there will be periods of suffering within the game, as there should be. You're trying to win the most important competition there is. I don't mind suffering and having to defend for your lives. But yeah, I think those are the key elements. If they can nullify some of those situations, there's still definitely enough in this Arsenal attack to create problems. And one last comment at you, set pieces. Arsenal are the best team when it comes to set pieces. Oh, hopefully, fingers crossed, they're also one of the best defensive set pieces team as well. They're going to get some corners tomorrow, and they're going to get a couple of set pieces, free kicks wise, and they have to maximize those opportunities. I don't think it's the time to be super cute and play lots of short corners. Maybe Niko Jova might go down that route if PSG are really crowding the box, thinking, expecting the long crosses, the big crosses, and suddenly you get a few short situations, maybe. But you know as well as I do, if you can get those big giants in and around the goalkeeper, making attacking situations, going towards the ball aggressively, you sense Arsenal will cause a few problems there. PSG haven't looked all that comfortable in defending those situations. And I just wonder whether or not that might also impact his decision to play maybe a Calafiori or someone. So yeah, set pieces, some of those other defensive situations, it makes for a very intriguing affair. How do you see it? Do you see it as it feels more of a neutral, you're right, contrasting styles, but does it feel for you as a bit of a pick'em game, or do you think in the end PSG are perhaps just the superior team?
I mean, you touched upon it right towards the end in terms of Arsenal's approach, and I think the set plays. In fact, that's what I was going to say. That I think I hope not, but I almost sort of feel that there's going to be an emphasis on set plays because I think uh, they are, without a shadow of a doubt, I think the best team in world football at set players, both offensively and defensively. And in the modern game, it's an important facet to your game. And I think they probably might just sort of think that look, we'll keep it tight, we'll keep it very, very sort of cagey, but we will have opportunities, we'll have corners, we'll have set pieces in and around the penalty box, and when we have them, we've got to capitalize, and they've got as good a chance as any because I think they are such a potent force in set plays. Uh, for me, it's something that I was thinking about earlier. That I think if you'd asked Arsenal or Arteta at the start of the season, right, you're in the Champions League final, who do you not want to play? And they would have said probably PSG. If you'd asked PSG right at the start, you're in the Champions League final, who do you not want to play? It would have been probably Arsenal. Because I think for PSG, the hardest team that they're going to play this season will be Arsenal and vice versa. So it makes it a really interesting tie. I just sort of feel that Arsenal are very, very smart. They're a powerful team. They're a good team. They're a team buoyant, really full of beans, full of confidence. And I think they're a team capable of defending. I think no matter how good the opposition is, they've won the English Premier League, the hardest league in world football. So if that doesn't give you confidence, nothing will. PSG, albeit they're a very dominant side, they're a dominant side in a weak league. Now, I think the advantage of playing in a weak league is that you're much fresher. You don't
Yeah,
have to play at 100% week in, week out. They've rested players many, many times during the season. So I think they'll be very fresh. Arsenal probably will be tired, but I think obviously if you keep on winning, that sort of energizes you. If you win the league, it energizes you. I've got to sort of say that I think if I was a betting man, I'd probably say the better side, if you talk about pure football, is PSG, but the side that's more pragmatic and difficult to beat is Arsenal. So I would actually say it's very tight. I think it's a flip of a coin as to who will come out advantageous. I think at the moment the odds are more in Arsenal's favour, purely because I think they are probably quite confident, thinking, right, no matter what array of riches they have in terms of offensive players, the boys at the back, they'll probably be thinking, right, we're good enough. We've defended against top quality players all season. There's no reason why we can't defend against the players that PSG have got. So they'll probably be thinking, right, uh, midfield and defense will do our job. We'll get set plays. When we get set plays, we'll make it count. And I've almost got a feeling that that probably is almost the modus operandi. So I'd probably say that if PSG don't score in the first half an hour or so, they'll start feeling the pressure. I think that first sort of 30 minutes will probably be important. Ideally, what PSG will be looking at is scoring the goal early, which then completely sort of opens up the game because I think whatever game plan Arteta has will have to change. I think his philosophy, his sort of match strategy will be keep it tight, keep it tight. 0-0 at halftime will be excellent for Arteta because I think the longer it goes without a goal, I think the more pressure it puts upon PSG because I think for them, they have to completely change the way that Arteta approaches this game. I think by scoring early, he has to change. If he doesn't do that, then it's playing into Arsenal's hand. So I'm really looking forward to because I love this contrasting styles. Ideally, obviously, as a purist, I want it to be a team that obviously playing on the front foot, plays attractive football, and also you said about sort of PSG. It is. I mean, it's a team that's very close to my heart. I've been to the ground many, many times. And in terms of fan bases, it is the most
Yep.
electrifying experience you will ever get. And the Ultras are a unique group of fans. I mean, I've seen the Ultras up close and personal. I mean, it's a complete social mix. You'll see sort of black, white, North African, women with sort of headscarves. You'll never see that in a football sort of fan group. So it's wonderful to see. So it's going to be an amazing atmosphere. I was at the Champions League last year. PSG, I mean, it was a romp. They won 5-0. It was a walk in the park. In fact, it was quite a boring contest. I wanted PSG to win, but I wanted it to be a better game. I hope it's a good game. I hope it's a good spectacle. And again, it's one where it's a few weeks before the World Cup, and again, I don't know whether that will sort of contribute to perhaps the style of play that we see, maybe, or maybe not. Maybe the players are so well tuned that as soon as the match starts, everything else is forgotten about. So I hope it's a great game, and I hope, ideally, I want the team that wins to be the one that sort of plays on the front foot. Which obviously, in theory, should mean PSG, but obviously, as an Arsenal man, you'll be hoping for an Arsenal victory. So
Yeah.
I'm just excited. I mean, obviously, there's no pressures on me, but I want it to be a cracking game.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's the culmination of club football in the end, before the break, before the World Cup starts, pretty much in earnest. I think it's about June
Mm.
11th or something along those lines. I need to
Yeah,
check the dates again. But you're right. You spoke very quickly there you about the PSG in terms of the ease of their league. I think out of the 12 players who have crossed 3,000 minutes this season, nine belong to Arsenal. So that
mm.
gives you a little bit about, let's say, the grind that they've had to more kind of commit to in getting the league over the line. What I would say, however, is yes, I mean, look, it is what it is. Those are the circumstances. I
Mm.
think Dembele won League Player of the Year, but he only had nine starts or something
Yeah,
ridiculous like that, and what have you. So it tells you that these are very different playgrounds, let's say, that both clubs enjoy. I think if there is one bit of grace for Arsenal is the fact that they were able to rest many players for that Palace game. So in
mm.
theory, in amongst the jubilation and celebrations, and as they should,
Yeah,
in amongst the Premier League title trophy celebrations, they've been able to give key players critical rest. I was actually having a bit of a heart attack because of the bench that he'd named against Palace that actually then made its way onto the pitch. I mean, these are players that will participate in the final tomorrow. Gyökeres came on, Eze came on. Both players may find themselves on the bench to start with. Marino made sense because you need to give him some valuable minutes before heading in to the Champions League final. But look, Arteta's got, I think Luis Enrique knows the team he's going to play. He's known the team he's going to be play health pending for quite some time. I know Hakimi had an injury issue, but I think he's fine. Dembele had a slight issue in, I think, the last league game, but he'll be absolutely fine. Arteta's got a few more decisions to make. Mosquera or Timber at right back. I think it'll be Mosquera. Hincapi Calafiori at left back. It's one of those who do you want in terms of attributes and what have you. I think he'll opt for Hincapi. Miles Lewis-Skelly, Zubimendi to partner Rice. Could he go for the youth, an infusion of youth in Miles Lewis-Skelly? Or does he go for the experience of Zubimendi? Let's not forget he played the second half of England against Spain in the Euro final. This is not a player who's not, who's got experience of these big moments. You then probably think he's going to play Odegaard. So does he slide Eze on the left? But it's Hakimi. So you're probably thinking it's probably going to go Trossard, maybe Martinelli. And does he go Havertz or Gyökeres? If he plays Havertz, I think he goes Martinelli. If he goes Gyökeres, I think he goes Trossard. So there's a lot of combinations that he's got to make decisions on. Havertz, let's not forget, he's had big moments, hasn't he? This stage, he's delivered a Champions League for your son's boyhood club against Man City. So these are not kind of alien moments to him as well. Big game he has produced. He had a great game, I thought, at the Etihad, which I think would have been quite poignant for Arteta at the time. I think he would have looked at that and thought, my biggest game of the season. He opted for Havertz. He had a chance, yes. If you remember, two chances, one's through on Donnarumma, the last one with the header. But he's there, isn't he? You're right there. He obviously got the goal through good endeavour, forcing a mistake from Donnarumma. So there's a lot of decisions to make. It's going to take a huge Herculean effort, I think, not just physically, but mentally, because that's the mental strain that this PSG team puts on you. And it should be difficult, Ayub. It's the Champions League final. It shouldn't be handed to you. You've got a graph for it. And I just think if Arsenal can just keep themselves in the game, even if they're losing by a goal, critical just not to fall goals behind against this type of athletic team that can run you off the ground. You saw how they destroyed an unathletic Inter Milan team last year in the final. It was an absolute hammering. It was 5, I think. Could have been 8, could have been 9. It was an absolute destruction at the highest stage of Champions League football. I just think Arsenal have to just stay within the margins, and good things can happen. No doubt, even PSG, as good as they are, as great as they are, you've got to make them feel nervous somewhat in terms of closing the game out. So yeah, should be an incredible game. A huge spectacle, 2 incredible managers, I think we'd both agree. And may the best team win, and hopefully for us, that's Arsenal.
Well, I'm not going to let you leave without a prediction. So, what score?
It's a one-off game, Ayub. I think PSG, from what I've seen, they can win every type of. It's like a boxer that can slug it out for 3 rounds, or can win on points, be it unanimous or split decision. I just worry that in terms of just out and out class, PSG are just a tick ahead of where Arsenal are in terms of that journey, in terms of that confidence. The manager has a wonderful arrogance about him, which I really love. I think managers do need to have that arrogance. I think PSG may just eke out narrowly in regulation time. So I'm probably going to go for 2-1 PSG. I'd love to be proven wrong, but normally when it comes to games like these, I opt for what my eyes tell me is the better team, and I think that's PSG just.
Well, I sort of concur. I reckon it's going to be 3-1. It's going to be a tight game. I mean, when I say 3-1, it seems like quite a sort of bold sort of scoreline. But I think perhaps I've got a feeling that PSG will score quite early on, and that will just completely change the dynamic. And I think towards the end, they probably might sort of the more open Arsenal are, the more opportunities for PSG, and I think they'll probably just sort of pick Arsenal off. So 3-1. I call it 3-1. We'll sort of see what happens. So right, that's we'll draw a line under the Champions League. Something really exciting to look forward to. what came to a conclusion last week was the Premier League. It obviously ended with Arsenal winning, which was for you an absolute delight. But what I want to just sort of focus on I mean, for me, it was a fantastic season. I thought it was a really, really good season. Lots of talking points, lots of interest, lots of good football, lots of sort of moments. So I just want you to ask you sort of what sort of stood out. Is there a sort of a moment, two moments that sort of stood out for you during the season?
If it's okay, Ayub, I'm going to go a little bit bigger picture when we talked about what this season, in a sense, meant. A review, a look back to what this season represented, and I think I will cover it more as a larger picture from my perspective. Obviously, being out here in the UAE, it's a very different experience in terms of consuming sports, whether it's consuming Arsenal. Arsenal is at the forefront of my mind. They've been going for the biggest trophies since I've been out here a couple of years now, and it represents a very, what's the word? My brother probably, I wouldn't say taught me this, but I know this is how he lives his life a little bit as well by working insane hours at the school that he does, where he often talks about how he just wants his team, and perhaps you can relate, you just to entertain him on the weekends, just to put a smile on his
Mm.
face. Now he's much older than I am, so he's probably got other priorities, as he should, but Liverpool Football Club is a number one priority for him. Um, and and I can relate because in the UAE, you have different challenges. You're working here under, let's say, a sponsored visa. You've not something you have to think about when you're working on home shows. You've got security, you've got stability. So when you're following your team play and you're looking for a bit of respite, whether it's the weekend or Champions League, there is a heightened level of importance. Again, in the grand scheme of things, in terms of world events, of course, it's irrelevant. We understand that, but just in the sporting sphere, you do look for a little bit of respite and a little bit of, let's say, good vibes to go into Monday morning. And I can absolutely relate to that, given the challenges of, let's say, being away from home, quote unquote. What I would say for this Premier League season, Arsenal, obviously, it goes without saying, they've they have put a smile on my face. I mean, irrespective of what happens tomorrow, there'll be profound disappointment if we lose tomorrow. Believe you me, I'll probably won't have felt that kind of disappointment for a long, long, long time if it doesn't go our way. But winning the Premier League title after years, and the number one thing I can think about is how I think when you're following sport, whether it's football, cricket, rugby, Formula One, boxing, UFC, whatever it may be, basketball, it's very important if sport is your vice, and everyone's got one of you, that you educate yourself, you inform yourself, you don't cheapen your discussions with troll-like comments and rage baiting. You have good, reasonable discussions about what you think are the rights and the wrongs. I will comment to that perhaps with our third topic. And I've long since been a proponent of that. I had to leave many WhatsApp groups because of this constant rage baiting and troll-like comments. And some like it, it's banter, but it wasn't for me. Horses for
Mm.
courses, that type of stuff. So I just became, and we discussed it, that could we get a podcast up and running where we just get to talk football and whatever it might be. It just gives us an outlet to release. And I think about some of the kind of misinformation out there a little bit about how most of society, when they follow sport, they'll cotton onto an opinion at Talk Sport or the Overlap or Sky Sports, and they'll just run with it. They've not done any due diligence
Mm.
or any reading or understanding of what's happened and what have you. I remember once in 2019, and I never forget this, Eden Hazard signed for Real Madrid Football Club in the summer of 2019. And I remember at that time being a slightly young buck. It should have been more mature. It was only 6, 7 years ago. And I remember saying for the longest time, that's Chelsea Football Club finished. You can't lose the best player in the world,
Mm.
irrespective of the price. He was their golden goose, at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And I remember saying that's them finished 3, 4 years. Just forget about Chelsea Football Club. 2 years later, they delivered the Champions League triumph under Thomas Tuchel against Man City. And it taught me a valuable lesson that when you have, let's say, the right foundation and you've got a great manager and you're able to do things the right way, you can get back to the big time and win the bigger stuff. The misinformation or let's say, the misnomers that you have, your preconceived conclusions that you have in your mind are actually not well thought out or well reasoned if you actually look at the evidence. If you remember for the longest time with Arteta, there was this idea, oh, if he's not winning, it's his first job, he's inexperienced, he's not good enough, get yourself a champion. But then for the longest time, I kept looking at the evidence, the direction, the vision of the football club, the values in which he was instilling, the fact that he got rid of Aubameyang very early on. And we spoke about it time and time
Mm,
again. You'll remember one of our lovely friends, Ayaz, was like, why is he getting rid of Aubameyang? And I said, well, this is the price you have to pay. If you're going to hand over your club to a manager who you believe in, then there's going to be a little few bumps in the road where, again, we missed out on Champions League football, many believe, because we ran out of goals in the end, which Aubameyang could have delivered short-term gain.
mm,
But he was embedding an ethos into the football club, which only now you're starting to realize the values of so many failures, if we can call it that. But always believe that over time, if you keep knocking at you, similar to how Chelsea delivered that Champions League triumph, if you remember, with Drogba and Lampard, it wasn't their best team
mm.
when they
Yeah.
beat Bayern Munich in that Bayern Munich stadium. If anything, they'd had much better teams in the years preceding that. But if you keep knocking on the door at some point, the door will open. So my overall point about how I look back on this season is the kind of, I wouldn't say the validation, but this kind of, for the longest time, me personally, I've consumed sport on my own. I consume sport all the time, consistently. If I'm not sleeping, I'm not working, I swear I'm consuming a lot of sport, whether it's talk shows, podcasts, debate shows, American sports, whatever it may be, weekend Formula One. And it's all because I like to be as informed as possible about the storylines and the narratives and the drama and the personalities. And I think this year, especially with Arsenal's triumph, it was in some way a validation of that because I felt for the longest time that Arsenal were on, let's say, the right direction. So if I can encourage anybody, really, is I feel like the kind of banter that we often have with one another is it's fine, it's great stuff, and I think often it's of a mild nature and it's there for a few laughs and what have you. But I find some of the other, let's say, conclusions that we draw often a lot more rage baiting and clickbaity, and I don't really have any time for that. It's just a personal, maybe I'm just a
Mm,
granddad now,
mm, mm.
but I don't have any real kind of affinity for those type of comments when you're simply just trying to
Yeah.
provoke a reaction of some sort. So I think that's was the genesis of why we started to do what we do, and I love it because it gives us an avenue to talk
Mm.
serious stuff in terms of football, and we've covered some other topics as well, some close to home. But I think, again, just to conclude, I think this season, when I look back on it, especially with Arsenal winning the Premier League title at Europe, it's a bit of validation for how I love to consume sports, which is, everything that tells you about the evidence that Arsenal were building, the steps that they were taking, year one, year two, year three, Arteta was taking. It's all come to fruition, and this is how it should be, building from the ground up, foundation up, and all these other misnomers that we have. Arsenal, they've got to beat a City or a Liverpool. They didn't beat City or Liverpool this season, yet they still ended up
Yeah.
winning the Premier League title. They need a number nine who's going to deliver 20 plus Premier League goals. They didn't have that this season, irrespective of how well Gyökeres did. These are just misnomers. Ultimately, there's hard work, there's good values, there's consistency. And if you deliver that over a period of time, good things will happen. And I think that's what Arsenal proved. So I went around the houses a little bit there, you, but it was something that I wanted to get off my chest a little bit as well. I imagine yours will be more centered around Yorkshire and Leeds United Football Club, but I'll let you take it away.
Not quite, not quite. I mean, it's not far off, but it's in the sort of same ballpark. But my sort of story that I want to talk about, and I think it really should get more airtime because I think it's a remarkable story, is Sunderland and Regis Libri. Because sort of teams that come up, I mean, obviously it was well sort of documented that sides that have come up in the last, I think, 2 seasons, all three sides that have come up have gone down. And it's become harder and harder for promoted sides to stay in the Premier League because it just is the chasm between the Premier League and the Championship is huge. It's monstrous. So it's extremely difficult. And I think teams have always tried to find a way of finding a solution. What is the matching ingredient? And I don't think it's an easy one. But what Regis Labrie has done, and sort of based on the fact that they had to win via the playoffs as well, they finished a number of points behind ourselves and Burnley. And what Regis Labrie has done is created a template as to how you can do it. Now, they've obviously they've spent well, they've spent big for a championship side, but what they've done is it's not just reckless buying. They've bought some really, really good players. And Granit Xhaka, I know it's a player that you are very familiar with. It's that type of signing. I think teams that come up now, need to look at Sunderland and look at the players that have been recruited. It's very, very important. Now, I think what needs to be factored in is Regis Lebris. I think he's a sensational coach. He really is. I mean, I think he was an outstanding coach in the Championship. He's very much. He reminds me, and I think I've mentioned this on a previous podcast of Arsene Wenger. I mean, he's not had a glorious sort of
Mm.
backstory. He's not come. I mean, I think with Arsene Wenger, I think he came from Grampus 8, and I'm not sure exactly what sort of managerial history he had prior to that. But he wasn't one of these where he was an outstanding player that he's had a good
Mm.
managerial career. It was almost like through the back door, very much like Regis Lebris. But again, very much in Arsene Wenger's vein. It's he's a student. He's very intelligent. He's an educated man, and he's very, very thoughtful about how he approaches the sport. There is a very sort of very much a science-based approach to it, but he's very much into individuals, into characters as well. So it's a holistic approach. And it's been an outstanding story. What they've done, I mean, to stay in the Premier League would have been an
Yeah,
achievement in itself. To finish seventh, I think they are in Europe. I'm pretty certain that means that they
correct.
are in Europe with the successes that we've had with all the English clubs. But it's a remarkable achievement. To me, he's the manager of the year without a shadow of a doubt. I know obviously there'll be arguments for Arteta, especially if he wins the Champions League. But I think sometimes you've got to put it into context.
Yeah,
What he's had to do now, they always sort of say, right, you buy players, it takes time to bed in. They've taken no time at all to bed in. They've played magnificent football. They've played a brand of football that's pleasing to the eye. It's physical. I mean, they're a very robust side, very strong side, very physical side, but it's a formula that is effective. So that is an amazing story. And obviously, I will add Leeds to the mix as well because again, what we've done, and especially Daniel Fark, I think again, I just talked about
hey,
Regis Lebris. Yeah, he had to be, and that again is something why I want to talk about. Daniel Fark. I've been his most vehement critic, and obviously some of the bile that I've spewed towards Daniel Fark, and I was very much Daniel Fark out at the start of the season. But what I will always do is eat humble pie, uphold my hand up when somebody proves me wrong. He has proved me wrong and then some. I think what he has done, and I will still maintain, we had the second worst side in the Premier League. I think Burnley were awful; they were hopeless. And the next worst side. I mean, I say worst. I mean, it sounds really derogative, but
yeah,
it's for want of a better phrase, that's the phrase that I'll use. So everything told you that it was going to be a real struggle because Daniel Fark's record, two previous attempts in the Premier League, was two relegations. The side that he had, the squad that he had, we didn't have depth as well. So everything was pointed towards Fark really good, sort of struggling and potentially ended up sort of
yeah, yeah,
relegating Leeds. And we did have a sort of an okay start, but then we had a real sort of bad run, culminating in that famous Man City game where we were losing 2-0. He changed his formation, and almost it's a transformation from there on in. And towards the end, I mean, I think they did a table from I don't know from the Man City game. We were about sort of sixth, seventh, sort of in the last part of the season, but wonderful, wonderful. I mean, as a fan, obviously delighted that we stayed up, but I cannot sort of give enough credit to Daniel Fark, and he's flexing his muscles now. He started dictating terms to Leeds. He said, "Look, if you, uh,
yeah. I saw that.
he's yeah, 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 an absolute. I mean, I was delighted he said that because he said, "Look, I'm not here just to keep sides up." I want to go to the next level. He would have never said that last season or when he started, but now, but that's exactly what you do. What you do is you. He's he's got leverage now. He's obviously talking from a position of strength, and that's what he should
Correct.
do. I'm absolutely delighted for Daniel Fark. I mean, I'm more than happy to eat humble pie. But to me, those are the remarkable stories that Regis Labrie thought should be. I mean, I hope there is some sort of acknowledgement in all of
Yeah.
these talk shows that somebody says Regis Labrie should be considered, or at least if he's not manager of the year, there should be something that he should be given because what he's done is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take your points just very quickly in reverse and give you the final word. Daniel Farker, by the way, is a great example, actually, of the point I'm trying to make. We have these sweeping statements that we all make from time to time. about how he's a manager who gets you from the Championship to the Premier League. We just don't know if he can keep a team in the Premier League because we haven't seen it. Well, up until this season. And that's the label that many of these managers, players, or just generally in sports that we throw these lazy narratives. Now, yes, the greatest indicator of future probability is past events. Now, the past
Mm,
events tell you that Daniel Farke did well to get Norwich up from the Premier League, but ultimately went back down. Now with Leeds, he's obviously bucked that trend and he deserves credit for that. I'm just thinking there is always room in sports, whether it's an Arteta, whether it's a Farker, whether it's a player, to evolve, to grow, to if they weren't a good player, they can become a great player. They might have been a great
mm,
player, but they're no longer a great player. I just think we often are too lazy in our assessments of all types of sporting events. And I think Daniel Farker actually is a great example of that. No, I mean, you saw, I mean, even the Leeds hierarchy before the season, before a ball was kicked, were looking at possible replacements for Daniel
yep.
Farker before game week 1. It didn't come to pass. That's not to say a new manager wouldn't have kept them up, but
Mm,
you can't prove a negative. So the fact is Daniel
mm.
Farker did what he had to do. I mean, I did notice his comments in the past week, and they were met with a little bit of short shrift, I would say, from your board, who I think mentioned the word, just to build cautiously and to try and
Mm,
establish yourselves in the league. So I think they were trying to temper,
mm,
let's say, Daniel Farker's, as you mentioned, kind of leverage position to try and kick on right now. I can see both sides, to be fair, of the equation. And again, Regis Labrie, you're right, Ayub, to achieve. And there was a wonderful picture, wasn't there, Ayub, last game of the season? I think all the players, I should say, were centered around probably checking on one or two mobile phones within the players. And as soon as they found out that they were promoted, I think, to the Europa League, there was a lovely kind of electronic sign, Sunderland heading for Europe, and what have you. You're right, a promoted club achieving Europe, that'll bring in a lot of coffers. You said they spent a
mm,
lot of money, but I saw a statistic that they still spent the least in terms of the 20 teams, and what have you. So it's a huge overperformance from them. That might be net spend, but I did see something along those lines. But again, huge achievement from the manager. I wonder whether that might bring its own problems. That's just my opinion. If they can use that money wisely, then great. If not, that's additional games and all the rest of it. We know that can be a little bit tricky for a
mm.
team that's still not matured, let's say, in the Premier League, or really fully established themselves, a la Brighton, a la Brentford, and some of the others, even Bournemouth, who've had a wonderful season as well. So yeah, wonderful. I think you're right to point those out, and especially from a Leeds perspective, it's great that both of our clubs
Yep.
achieved our primary objectives this season, with obviously my club still going for one more big one. So yeah, incredible season so far.
Right. Before we sign off, Keno's been up to no good again, or at least what Keno does. Uh, some statements again against Fernandez. But if you can outline sort of what's happened, and then obviously offer your thoughts, and obviously I'll offer my thoughts afterwards. So just sort of for our viewers as well, just go through what Keno's sort of been saying about the player of the season, Fernandez.
Yeah, I wanted to cover this topic, Ayub, because A, it's topical. It pretty much transpired over the past 4 or 5 days, and we've not shot for a little while. Bruno Fernandez, after the game against Nottingham Forest, I believe it was, when they won 3-2, made a comment in one of the interviews about how he actually regretted taking some shots in certain situations and he wished he'd passed. I think those were the comments that he made. Roy Keane misconstrued those comments, and is often the case in terms of shooting from the hip. Or we'll check the facts later, but let's just
Mm,
spout what we want to spout for the time being. He misunderstood that to be as though Bruno Fernandes was turning down shots to try and get passes and assists potentially, with a view to breaking that record. And this was a clear misunderstanding from Roy Keane. Bruno Fernandes then, so he caught a little bit of fire, I would say, early doors, because Keane obviously, as is often the case, didn't make his comments mildly. He attacked them with some gusto, as is often the case. Bruno Fernandes then broke the assist record, although quite controversially. I thought it was an own goal from the Brighton goalkeeper, final day of the season. But he's capped a remarkable season. He's given an interview to Stephen Bartlett, on the Diary of a CEO podcast, where he gave a little bit more, let's say, fuel to the fire and kept the argument going by saying he can accept a lot from Roy Keane and others in terms of footballing criticism and what have you, no qualms, no issues whatsoever. What he can't accept are lies being peddled by Roy Keane and others, to which Keane then retorted with, I think it was an Instagram post depicting simply a donkey by saying that too much attention for a donkey makes it think it's a lion or something along those lines. Essentially saying that because Bruno's had, it was clearly a reference to Bruno Fernandes, but clearly saying that because he's getting a lot of plaudits and a lot of flowers in recent times, don't forget he was voted, I think, Premier League Player of the Year as well now. So I think all the awards, individual ones, have gone to him, that he's feeling himself somewhat. That's what Roy Keane has. Now, I'll just cover it very quickly, Ayub, and then you give me your thoughts. The reason why I felt quite strongly about this is this fits nicely again into my point I was making about the general observation that I see about sports. I see a lot of sporting commentators, be it pundits, being analysts, whatever it may be, in whatever forums, being quite lazy in their commentary. You can tell there's been no analysis done, no effort undertaken to really understand the issues. I mean, this is very basic in terms of let's just try and understand what Bruno Fernandes said. Can I get a quote? Can I get the questions? Can I get the answers? Let me watch the full interview. I mean, this is basic. This is elementary stuff. If you're a pundit featuring on Sky Sports, which is a preeminent channel in the UK, or other major kind of podcasts, the Overlap is a very prominent podcast on the channels on YouTube. That you'd think you've got to be at least a bit responsible with your commentary. I mean, you're getting paid to give hopefully an informed opinion. Now, some of these channels have deviated a little bit into the clickbaity stuff. We can discuss that another day. But the fact is, Roy Keane was wrong, but he chose to double down. You mentioned about Daniel Farke that when you're wrong, you're happy to eat humble pie. Obviously, it's in the favor of your football club, but you're not so stubborn that you can't give credit where credit is due. I watched the entire podcast that Bruno Fernandes gave to Stephen Bartlett. I just want to cover a few things that he covered. He spoke about the teachings of his father in terms of how his father would often, who was a bit of a perfectionist. He said if you get 98% on an exam, there's still 2% out there to get. He often encouraged him to be a better person, better player, better student, he called it. So he spoke glowingly about the values that his mom and dad infused in him. He spoke about the sacrifices that his wife has made in terms of being quite instrumental in actually not leaving Manchester United to go to the Middle East. I think it was for a Saudi football club when 200 million was purported to be offered to him. And he spoke about his wife's influence and the teenage sweethearts. So they've come from, let's say, a very early age from Portugal. How she told him, do you think you've achieved everything there is to achieve at Manchester United? Because United was his preferred move when he came over from Portugal. And it gives you a bit of an insight into the human being that was Bruno Fernandes. He spoke also, and this was probably the best part, I thought, about when he got the phone call from his agent that Manchester United had agreed everything. Now, he'd aligned with his agent previously to say, look, there's going to be a lot of rumors about me because I know I'm one of the better players. And Portugal is seen as a bit of a kind of feeding ground for some of the bigger European leagues. And he was one of the better players, obviously playing for Sporting. And he said to his agent, look, there's always going to be a bit of noise around me. When there's something concrete, bring it to me. Otherwise, I'm not going to pay attention to any of it, which is probably a decent stance to take when you can be influenced and it can affect your game in some way. If you think there's a bit of noise around you, you could be moving. This could be your last game. And his agent rings him and he talks about how he was at the wardrobe just getting changed and ready for bed and what have you. His wife was putting the kids to bed, or at least his daughter to bed. I think he only had the one daughter at the time. And he speaks about how the agent rang him to say that, it's happened. He'd already turned down and moved to Tottenham. And he said, all the clubs have agreed. United are there. They just need your go ahead in terms of whether or not you want to make this happen. And he just froze. And he says he cried for about 10 to 20 seconds. His wife came into the room, like, what's going on? And he was just in tears at this wonderful dream being realized. I thought it just gave you a bit of an insight into the man. Now, look, he's getting paid hundreds of thousands of pounds. To be fair, as he should be. It's market economics.
Mm.
He's one of the best players in the world. He's one of the best players in the league, if not the best player in the league, and he's getting paid a pretty penny, as he should be. There was also this one other little moment I thought just very quickly. You He spoke about how his mum used to be a cleaner, and when she used to go and clean other people's houses, obviously just looking to make a living and what have you, he was always keen that the other homeowners where his mum was cleaning didn't, I think the phrase he used was downgrade her work or disrespect it in some ways. And he said, now I have a lady who cleans in my house and I tell her, look, of course I want certain things cleaned and what have you, but don't let the kids speak to you in a certain way. If they want something doing around the house, if they can do it, help them, no problem. But don't let them disrespect you now. And that's just the cleaner that's cleaning in his house. And you could sense when you hear him speak, and some of these are, you know this, so you're not naive. Some of these are powder puff pieces, and he's getting a bit of shine now. So these are interviews he's going to get. I mean, that's what happens with anything. If you look at Arsenal right now, you've got the owner doing a lot of interviews, Richard Garlick suddenly becoming, and that's par for the course. I
Mm.
get that. But he spoke very glowingly about the values he wants to put into his kids, saying, no, look, don't let them speak to you a certain way. If they can do it, help them, but let them do it. Equally, if they can't do it, make sure they don't tell you, oh, can you put this here and can you put this there? No, 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 make them do it themselves. So he's big on those. And I thought it just gave a bit of an insight into the person. I think the sad thing about all of this is, just very quickly to finalize, so you've got Roy Keane, who I'm not a big fan of his punditry because for me, he doesn't enlighten me in any way. And now
Mm.
that's just me personally. I like to be informed and enlightened in certain ways. I would actually argue that I've seen some pieces Thierry Henry does on Monday Night Football, which I found a bit more informative, I would say, than let's say your kind of pieces from Roy Keane. I think he goes to the same old cliches often, the normal stuff, characters, all that. But I think with him now, and I'm sure you're going to touch on this big time, he leans into this character way too much, this
Mm.
caricature. Now, you saw his comments about Carrick and his wife, and he still won't eat humble pie to say, I got
Yeah.
it wrong. Michael Carrick has done a fantastic job. He was brought in to win games of football, and he's won them at a lick that even Man United hierarchy would have seen him winning at. So I think he's absolutely right to get the job. I was wrong. He's outperformed in a sense what his remit was. You absolutely, I mean, what else can a manager do? He's gone to win
Mm.
some games. He's won games of football. That would be his normal narrative. But because he'd fastened himself to this wrong opinion that I think we should get a bigger manager and a better manager, and he made some derogatory comments about Michael Carrick's wife, he won't ever come off that ledge. And I don't like that in any person generally. Those are not good traits to have when you're wrong. It's fine. More evidence has come before you to inform your decision moving forward. You can change your opinion. You saw how he's been with Bruno Fernandes before, and I've seen this trait with Roy Keane. If somebody's getting a bit too much shine, he'll often have to douse that fire somehow just to say, well, read and rain on people's parade. He's the best player in the
Mm.
league. We can discuss whether he should have won it ahead of one of the Arsenal players, but there's no doubt he's one of the best players in the league. And without him, United would have been nowhere. So you could give him his flowers and you could say, he's really come up trumps. Was he always this player before? No, he had to grow. He had to grow as a person. You saw some of his petulance before you on the football pitch. We all spoke about it.
Mm.
We all saw it. Man United fans first and foremost. But when a player shows you the growth that he's shown you, and it takes time to mature, and he's now playing in a slightly better team, but he is at the heart and the epicenter of everything good that is Manchester United right now. Roy Keane just finds it so difficult to give him his flowers because ultimately everybody else is giving him his flowers, and he's always want to rein that back in. Now he'll argue, well, Man United should be about winning titles. I get that, but it's a journey. Now Man United are better placed today to challenge for the title in the coming years than they were, let's say, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I think that much is at least evident, especially now that they'll go on to improve that squad. So just to summarize, I'm fully in the camp of Bruno on the basis that Roy Keane got it wrong. I mean, factually, he got it wrong on the statement made. And Bruno Fernandes has been one of the best players in the league, and I don't see why that's so difficult to ultimately just give a player his praise and say, look, whether I like you or not, whether I've been critical of you or not, I give you kudos because 20 league assists and 7, 8, 9 goals, whatever he got. And you saw he was much more than that. If you look at his chance creation at you, I think he got I don't have the exact number to hand, but I think it was like 120 plus. Szoboszlai was next at 69 or 70 or something along those lines. I mean, it was a ridiculous gap in terms of, I mean, can you imagine if he was playing for, let's say, again, an Arsenal or someone like that? Arsenal would have won
Mm.
the league at a canter. So, yeah, listen, I think it's testament to sometimes the lazy footballing narratives that we had. I went and watched the entire Diary of a CEO podcast again, inform myself, educate myself, and ultimately the conclusion that you reach is this is just Roy Keane being typical Roy Keane. And I don't agree with those who have to caveat their commentary about this particular incident by saying one of our greatest ever captains. It's irrelevant. Whether he's one of
Yeah,
your greatest ever captains, he got flowers for that. He is, for me,
yeah.
one of the best midfielders, if not the best midfielder that we've ever had in terms of the Premier League history. Those things can all be true, but he's a lousy pundit, and he's a stubborn lousy pundit because he ultimately A, gets things wrong, and B, won't give the praise when clearly it's warranted to be the case.
I couldn't have put it better myself. I mean, I think he is. I mean, he's a. I very rarely watch. I mean, if I'm watching a game on Sky, I won't watch the preamble before the show. I won't watch any post match uh, sort of comments because I just Sky are awful. Sky Sports are absolutely awful. I mean, I think it's really systematic of sort of the media that we have at the moment. I mean, you talked about clickbait, rage bait. It really is. I mean, I mean, I've never been a massive fan of football pundits anyway because I think a lot of them are poorly educated just because you were an ex-pro. Yes, it gives you an insight. Obviously, it gives you an opportunity to talk about things from a first-hand experience, but I mean, I'm equally frustrated with Mika Richards. I mean, these are clowns. He's a court jester. That's all he is. Keane is. I mean, he's a school bully. And there's nothing. And you're absolutely right about the insight. There's nothing that he says that really is insightful. He is a caricature. He plays upon this character that's been sort of created throughout the time that he's been upon it. I mean, there's the odd one that sort of makes. I mean, I've been a fan of Gary Neville. Occasionally, he sort of frustrates me as well. Jamie
Mm,
Redknapp, I've always had a lot of time for it because he's. It's not about Jamie Redknapp. It's about he tries to offer a sort of reasoned commentary, reasoned arguments, and it's not about them. But overall, football pundits, I never listen to them. I think they talk out of their backsides a lot of the times, especially with Roy Keane. And I think uh, Sky sort of loved that because I think for them it is about clickbait, it's about views, it's about controversy, just creating controversy, and I'm not into that nonsense now. So for me, Fernandez is an outstanding player. Has he said something? Has he done things that perhaps
yep.
sometimes are questionable? Yes, of course. But he seems. I mean, I've not watched the podcast, so I don't know what he's said. But if obviously those things that you've talked about are I mean, they're very engaging. It's what you want to hear that in this age of sort of toxicity, in this age of division, somebody still has a strong sort of moral fiber, which obviously seems to have, and a lot of people lose it. I mean, it's we live in a world where footballers paid obscene amounts of money, and you can forget where you came from. He obviously hasn't. He's obviously living a wonderful life. His children will never know the experiences that he's known, but
Yep.
obviously he's trying to ingrain in them certain sort of key principles from what you're saying. So I think he's a footballer that deserves a tremendous amount of respect because what he does, he's not just a showboat player. He's a player that puts in a graft. I think if you look at the yards that he covers, the effort that he puts in, and yes, but he's a player that is so passionate. I don't mind. I don't mind the histrionics, the complaining, because it's somebody who cares. But he does back that up with some outstanding
Yep.
football. I mean, I've seen him live as well, and he's a wonderful, wonderful, gifted footballer. So I'm on sort of Team Fernandez on this one. I think Keane to me is just he represents all that's wrong with society at this moment in time. It's about division. It's about controversy.
Yep.
And you're absolutely right. There's nothing that he offers in terms of insight. So I never watch him. I just think he's stinking the joint out, and now I can understand why Ferguson sort of perhaps sort of felt that he was somebody that needed to be moved on. He thinks far too much of himself. Great footballer, but a real sort of stinky character. Enough said.
Yeah. Enough said. Yeah, and just very quickly, just before you sign us off, there was that famous game Arsenal played, I think at Old Trafford, I want to say, that famous clip, you can find it, where Tim Cahill, this is 6 years ago, extolling the virtues of Mikel Arteta. Now, they'd lost the game. just to be very clear, Tim Cahill speaking about Arsenal. It's a famous clip, and Tim Cahill's trying to offer a more kind of larger picture view, which is that this is very early in the project. Arteta understands where they're going wrong, which is perhaps which is helpful to him, but he can see the direction in which at least Arsenal want to build. Now, he's biased. He's very good friends with Mikel Arteta. He speaks to him pretty much all the time in terms of even now because of their time spent at Everton. But Tim Cahill was offering at that time a contrarian view because Arsenal had just lost the game. But he was saying that overall, I can see what Arteta's trying to achieve, A, B, C, D, whatever. He's trying to say essentially, he might be taking a step back today and losing today, but he's planning to win big tomorrow, essentially was the larger point. And that has come to fruition. Now, that's very clearly come to fruition. And Roy Keane was essentially slapping him down at the time, not even letting him finish his sentences. If you watch the clip, saying, "Yeah, but he's lost the game," and boom, 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 and all of this, like as though football is this. And again, it's about wins and losses.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to get relegated, a relegation would be a massive setback, obviously, as it would have been for Spurs if they'd got relegated. But if you're not going to get relegated and you bring a man in to change the entire ethos and culture of the club, Arteta's done that and then beyond. Yet Roy Keane at that time couldn't see it because in his lens of football, it's just, can you win today? Can you win tomorrow? And football isn't quite like that. You've got to build for success in the long term. And that often means that you're taking a lot of short-term pain. So, yeah, listen, again, he doesn't really offer too much in terms of you. I think you mentioned Jamie Redknapp. I like listening to Jamie Redknapp. I don't think he's biased. I think he tries to offer an honest opinion and what have you. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this storyline rumbles on a little bit longer. What's really interesting right now is in years gone by, probably most of the United fans would have been in Team Keane because United weren't doing so well. Now you've got arguably the best player in the league, who's now heading and hopefully will be trying to achieve big things with Portugal in the World Cup, and United pretty much in the ascendancy. That it seems to be very much not just split, but perhaps in favour of Fernandes. So yeah, interesting one to keep an eye on.
Yeah. We've been going on for over an hour, so I'm sure if there's anybody still with us, we do apologise for sort of dragging this on. But it's been interesting as always. Always, thank you for talking about your beloved Arsenal and the Champions League. Obviously, it's going to be a really exciting game tomorrow. So, and on that note, let's hope. I'm going to actually sort of, as a friend of mine, I'm going to wish Arsenal the best. And may the best team win. But weekend, wherever you are, we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye bye now.